Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of our podcast here at communicationsteroids.com. We talk about communications in all forms. Roger, you and I were just listening to a beautiful method of communication from one of our favorite artists, Bruce Cockburn.
Yes, absolutely. If I Had a Rocket Launcher, great tune.
And there's this album out, a CD up here in the Oregon area called Kink Live 10. The radio station's Kink. You can find them at kink.fm. The CD, they do a limited edition. They have, they have a live studio. They have folks come by and do live stuff on the air. And Bruce Cockburn came by, sang a couple songs, and just hooted out this one, which was just awesome. But boy, we talked about the communication aspects of it. It's passionate. It's emboldened. It's from the heart. And he communicates it with his fingers and his.
And technically excellent. On top of all that, in addition to being felt down to the soul, it's technically very good.
And you think about a guy like that, when he was a kid, when he started playing, I mean, what did it take for a guy to get up and start singing in front of people? What did it get for him to take the plunge? That's what we're talking about today. That is our theme today.
Nice seg, buddy.
In Communication Steroids podcast. I'm Tim Gordon.
I'm Roger Pike.
And what does it take to take the plunge? How do you determine if it's time, and what does it take to get past your fear or your hesitation or your whatever that case may be that keeps you from getting up in front of people to do your communicating?
If you've been listening to us for a while, if you've been part of what we've tried to do at Communication Steroids, then you have the tools and the skills, or at least the tools necessary to develop the skills that will allow you to become a better public speaker or a better communicator in total, not just public speaking. So the question is if you haven't done so at this point, why not?
I think one of the things you have to do, and I'll share the brief story about why I didn't join a Toastmasters club for like 4 years. I ran out of excuses. I always had an excuse not to do it. But I finally identified what was stopping me, and that was I really wanted to do this, but I had a fear of doing it, whatever the thing was, but I ran out of excuses. Finally, I picked up the phone, started calling, and I got into a Toastmasters club, and it was the best thing I did.
So that's the first takeaway from our podcast today is identify, if you haven't done it yet, identify what's stopping you. Is it that you have no good reason for the risk? I mean, let's face it, public speaking is a risk. You're taking a chance. If you feel like you don't have a reason that justifies the risk, then you won't do it. But Tim will tell you, and I will tell you, that no matter what you think, you do have a reason to take the risk.
There's definitely a reward at the end of that risk. And yes, there are times when you may feel like you didn't do the job you wish you would have. You didn't accomplish what you really wanted to. But nonetheless, any stumble, as we put it, any roadblock is giving you information. It tells you, and plus it gets you past that little roadblock. I mean, there were times when before I would get up and speak, my stomach would be upset. I'd be sweating. my adrenaline would be rushing, and it happens to a certain degree, but not the way it used to.
Sorry, buddy, never happened to me.
Never happened to you because you're just a show-off. You're a ham. There's nothing I can do about that. But I can relate to someone who says, man, I just, for days before I get up in front of people, I get scared, and that could be stopping you. Well, don't let it stop you because there's a great reward at the end of that.
If you become a better speaker, you will help yourself in your career. You will help yourself in your family life, your home life. There are a multitude of rewards that come from being a better, more solid, more able communicator. It is worth the risk. So identify what's stopping you, and if it's that you don't feel there's enough reward to justify the risk, just get past that because there is.
So how can you overcome that? What kind of steps would you suggest to someone, Roger, who has identified the fear or whatever it may be that keeps them from getting up in front of people? How do you get them past that?
Well, once you've established that the reward is worth the risk, then you need to come to grips with some other things that may be stopping you. For example, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of ridicule. All of those things may be saying, well, yeah, I know it's a good idea if I become a better public speaker, but I'm just afraid. Well, there are a series of steps that you can take to overcome that. I think step one is develop a message that you're proud of. Have something to communicate. Have something to say.
And that's really the most important thing about being a public speaker is have something to say. And that was always an issue for me. I thought, well, I don't know if I have a whole lot to say here. But, if you think about it and you pick a topic, no matter what that may be, and you go through a process of saying, okay, here's what I think about this. YouTube, for instance, was doing a thing in the last couple of weeks on what do you stand for? What do you stand for? And I thought, well, geez, there's a lot of things I stand for, but what would I be passionate about? And I came up with 3 or 4 things eventually that I would could sit in front of a camera and they want you to do 90 seconds, and you could do that without even thinking about it because you're passionate about it. So figure out what you're passionate about and develop a message.
Even if it's model railroads, it doesn't have to be political or something like that. It can be a hobby. It can be, you can be passionate about talking with your wife about where you want to go on vacation.
It could be about teaching your kids the value of money.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of things.
So develop a message that you're proud of. And then once you've practiced it in front of that mirror, that message, then deliver that same message in a friendly, supportive environment.
That could be a number of places. Obviously, we've talked about Toastmasters. That's certainly a place to do it. You could do that at a business, as a matter of fact.
Sure, in front of friends. I mean, you can just get your friends together and say, look, this is a message that I'd like to communicate. What do you think? And here's how I'm going to do it.
Exactly.
And then I just said an important thing. I said, ask them, what do you think? Get feedback. And don't just get feedback. Be honest about it. And then if it's good feedback, act upon it. I mean, not all feedback is useful.
It's true. Feedback is just feedback. It's neither right nor wrong. It is someone's opinion. It could be very useful to you. You could take someone's feedback and say, after you've thought it over and said, that really doesn't apply to what I'm
wronger
doing.
than wrong.
Yeah, it's wronger than wrong. I mean, you can make up your mind about that. Feedback is not always critical. It can be positive. It can be negative. But don't look at it as right or wrong. It's just feedback. Yeah.
But if it's good, if it resonates, if it strikes home, if you think they've got a point, then act.
And you can incorporate that. Yeah, you take
exactly.
that. Once you've done that, the next step would be to take it on the road, find places, find venues, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But then the next step, of course, is keep doing that. Keep getting feedback, keep applying, keep acting upon the feedback, and you've got a loop there going. So you're going to find yourself getting better. You're going to get good feedback, and you're going to apply that. And you go out the next time you speak, you'll not do the wrong things you did last time. You'll incorporate the good things you did last time. And so each time, generally speaking, you will get better.
And then the final reason we can think of not to take the plunge is that you don't have a place to do it. You don't have a good venue, a good outlet. But you can find an outlet. You can, for example, you can go to your boss and suggest a topic for the next business meeting. You can offer to present on a new system or business practice at the next business meeting. So you can, if you've got a decent relationship with your supervisor at the next business meeting, you can present something. That's one possible venue. You can offer you to even chair a business meeting. Your family is a venue. Again, we can talk about the vacation thing. I mean, if you want to go to Dodger Stadium for your next vacation and your wife wants to go to Hawaii, it's going to be a tough sell, but you can develop a communication strategy that might help you market that idea.
And part of that is part of your message. What is that message? You have to come up with the elements of that, whether it may be, okay, Dodger Stadium costs less. If we go during the baseball season, we can see a baseball game. It's right near Disneyland. I mean, you come up with all those reasons, and you incorporate that into your message. And that, as with any message, as we've talked about before in a lot of our podcasts and our online programs as well.
Well, and so the bottom line is you can find a place to deliver that message. You can develop a message. You can hone that message. You can get feedback. You can do it. So don't be afraid to fall, because there is no success without failure.
Go for it.
Turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones. I mean, all those bromides.
I think that's about it, Roger. Appreciate you joining me again for the Communication Steroids podcast. Just a short drive up the road from your house to mine in the basement studio and online, syndicated around the world through 80 countries.
The most fun you can legally have.